We all have a lot on our plates. There seems to be no shortage of things we need to remember to get done. And so many of us write to-do lists. But what you may not realize is that there is a silent to-do list that is constantly adding to that plate. Hi, and welcome back to the cottage. If you're like me, it's this time of year, at the end of summer, right before school begins, that seems to be extra chaotic, with forms that need to be filled out, supplies that need to be purchased, and calendars that need to be updated. And that's all on top of the already existing commitments and expectations of everyday life. It can be quite overwhelming. And that is why understanding the concept of the silent to-do list can really change your life. Now, if you haven't heard about this concept, it was first introduced by Fumio Sasaki in the book Goodbye Things. It's the idea that every single physical object that you surround yourself with needs you for something. But while we may set a reminder on our phone to not forget something like a doctor's appointment, or write a quick note on a piece of paper for those non-routine tasks such as trimming the bushes or changing a windshield wiper blade on a vehicle, we don't take the same account of the care and maintenance of the items that surround us every day in our homes. Instead, there is always kind of this looming responsibility that will pop up from time to time as an almost audible voice in our heads. The plant that's asking to be watered, the clothes that are reminding that they need to be folded and put away, the toilet taunting that it hasn't been cleaned in a couple of weeks. Now, of course, this is all in our heads. It's silly to think of these things as actually giving commentary. But using this personification technique does make it easier to understand the emotions that get tied up with our objects. And that is actually one of the key reasons I think that the silent to-do list concept is so relatable. Let's take a minute and think about how we interact with things throughout our lifetime, as described by Sasaki in the book. It all lays out sort of like a bell curve. Everyone comes into this world with nothing, just the way it's supposed to be. In our helpless state during this time, we rely on our parents to provide everything for us and take care of our needs. Any physical objects that we interacted with were on a very superficial level, and mainly those objects were used as tools to simply keep us alive and content. As time goes on, we are given gifts and start our own personal journey of accumulating stuff. Mostly the things we claim as ours are toys. Our playthings help us relate to the larger world around us in an imaginative way. In many regards, they become like friends to us. They make us happy. Eventually, we get old enough to be influenced into wanting certain things, either through advertisements or seeing what our friends have. And investment of our own money might also be made, making the bond with these objects even stronger. Now, after a while, we sort of get used to all of the things that we're surrounded with. We may even feel bored with them or start playing the comparison game and noticing that other people have something that we don't. And we get this deeper sense, this feeling of wanting something different or something more. It's during this stage of the timeline that we begin to believe that the things we own say something about us to other people. If we have a lot of books on our bookshelves, it means we are intelligent or well-read. If we have all of the kitchen gadgets, we must be a good cook. Our stuff somehow feels like an extension of us. And then, as the accumulation continues year after year, it will eventually lead to the top of that bell curve and an unavoidable tipping point. No longer do we feel that we own our stuff, but instead, it starts to feel like our stuff owns us. And do you know why we begin to have these feelings? The silent to-do list. It's at this point that we begin to notice those subconscious sounds that go along with the responsibility of owning stuff. Everyone will reach this point, but when it is reached can vary greatly from person to person. And maybe it's happening to you right now. Maybe that's why you're watching videos about minimalism and simple living. You feel overwhelmed by stuff, but can't figure out why. And you also can't figure out why your spouse or your kids seem to be completely unbothered. Well, let me pose a question. If this is a situation that you are in right now, who does the caring for the stuff? If your child leaves their socks on the floor of the family room, who picks them up? When splatters show up in the microwave, who wipes them? That handle that broke off of your favorite coffee cup, who glued it back together? Dozens of scenarios like this play out every single day, and the more time you spend with these items, the more care and attention you give them, the louder the voices of that silent to-do list will become. So why is it important that we know all of this? Well, it paints a very clear picture that even though our brains comprehend that our stuff is simply a collection of tools meant to aid us in life, to help us get through life, that subconsciously, when wrapped up with feelings and emotions, we make it out to be so much more. Have you ever caught yourself saying something like, "I love this new pair of shoes," or "Spending time playing the piano makes me so happy"? Those are human traits and interactions, and yet we give them to objects that can never reciprocate. It's another way that we personify our things. It's really important to remember that our things can bring us both positive and negative emotions, especially when we hit that tipping point and start to feel overwhelmed. Because, as they say, the squeaky wheel is the one that always gets the grease. We are instinctively going to notice the bad parts and recognize when our items are turned against us, causing us more pain and grief and maintenance time. And so, in turn, we're going to focus on all of those negative emotions and get tuned into them. And sometimes we just need to peel those away in order to see that there is still positive there. I recently heard that happy people focus on the things that make them happy, whereas unhappy people spend time focusing on the things that don't make them happy. That makes a lot of sense. And so that's how we're going to use this concept of the silent to-do list to our advantage and make some changes in life. We're going to go all in with the personification illustration now, so stick with me. Instead of just listening to the signals your stuff is giving you, demanding your time and attention, I challenge you to instead work on having a silent conversation with your things. A little give, a little take. It might sound something like this. "Wow, you look beautiful. I'm so happy to have you in my life. Here, let me get you some fresh water. You are so useful. Thanks for serving my family so well. Let's get you cleaned up." If you find that you can't do that with an item and all you ever get is nagging frustration, that is a clear indicator that it's time to let it go. You're putting way more effort into the relationship. And by the way, as the actual human in this relationship, you get to make all the decisions about what stays and what goes. You're the one in control. It's very important that we match the inventory levels in our homes with the mental capacity that we have for our current season of life. And that's going to get us to the other side of that bell curve that we were talking about earlier. We pare things down to a manageable level and coexist with our belongings in peace and harmony. Of course, there will always be negative messages sent, but they will probably sound more like a whisper than a shout and can be dealt with more readily. Really strive to make your home a place of peace, a refuge of sorts from all of the noise and distractions of this world. Like I said at the beginning of this video, there are going to be commitments and expectations that we simply can't avoid. The appointments need to be kept, the required paperwork needs to be filed, but we do have the final say on how we react to and treat our home spaces. So focus on the happy, focus on the positive by only keeping those things that are truly useful and valuable in your life, those things that you can continuously have that silent conversation with. And I can almost guarantee if you do this, you will be more happy as a result. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope that you'll stop by the cottage again really soon.